How's it going, everybody? It's Carlos, one of your hosts of the Bring on the Blitz podcast. I'm joined here by Rios. How's it going, Rios?
When's the next hot day? I'm tired of the cold already, man.
Yeah, it's pretty cold out here, man. Going through this polar vortex, it's pretty crazy. It's cold. Today it rained too. It's pretty crazy out here in Houston.
This nasty weather just reminds you of London.
Yeah,
Cold
right.
and dreary.
Yeah, man. So hey, listen. So we're the Texans are playing the Charger this weekend. In the wild card game, they gave the Texans a 3:30. The Texans and the Chargers at 3:30 p.m. Central Standard time
Traditional
slot.
weather.
Yeah. All right. A little
Good.
bit more with that, and a little bit of the Chargers versus Texans. Right after the intro. Hit it. All right, so today in the short edition of the Bring on the Blitz podcast, Rios and I are going to discuss basically what the Texans can do to actually pull this off, and things that they need to watch out for. So there you go. That's her. What's her name again, Rios?
Gracie.
Gracie. There you go. Goodness, the only person, the only thing that likes you. No, I'm just kidding.
Right?
Yeah. All right, man. So all right, Rios. Let's talk a little bit about what the Texans went through against the Titans. Now, keep in mind that was a game that really
Didn't matter.
wasn't. It really wasn't. It was more of an, I guess, an exhibition game, playing some of the backups. Yes, you had the starters play a little bit, but I mean, CJ Stroud only threw like a few passes, and that was about it. Had a scoring drive, and then after that, it was that. So really briefly, who impressed you the most in that game? Yes, again, understanding that it was just against the Titans. What was something that you saw that was surprising and impressive for you?
Well, for the majority of the week, I've told people on Twitter, expect this to be like a preseason game for the Texans. They're
Mhm.
going to play their starters one, maybe two series.
Mhm.
If they look good, they'll probably sit the rest of the game. Now, if they
Mhm.
had struggled a little bit against a Titans team that, let's be honest, they weren't trying to win that game. They were trying to secure the number one pick. I mean, they haven't had much to play for all season. So, you can't really, fault them for doing that. But thankfully the offense was actually was entertaining while they were out there. Because I'll be honest, I was expecting a snooze fest. But that offense for that first series, they were pretty impressive. CJ went 6 for 6 for about 50 yards and a touchdown pass.
Mhm.
The offensive line held up pretty well. He didn't face much pressure. Joe Mixon was able to hit a few holes. Both him and Nico Collins were both able to get over 1,000 yards. I believe they both hit their incentives that they needed to hit for that day. So, kudos to them for, getting a payday. But
They
other than
deserve
that,
it.
wasn't a whole lot as far as impressive on offense. Because after that, it was the Davis Mills show. And I mean, he did well for what you expect from a number two backup
Mhm.
quarterback. Other than that, I would say the interior offensive line impressed me. Even when they were going against the backups, they were also facing backups on the other side of the ball as well, and
Mhm.
they held up pretty well. Not a whole lot of pressure. I don't believe either quarterback was pressured or sacked. I could be mistaken, but I didn't see a whole lot of pressure from the interior. So gives you a little bit, if you're a Texans fan, a little bit of a sigh of relief, seeing that the offensive interior line held up pretty nicely week 18.
Yeah, the interior line's been a consistent problem for the Texans the entire season. I mean, it was actually uh, quite refreshing to see that. Hey, they got somebody to hold them up, and I think they were. I can't off the top of my head. Did Juice Scruggs play this game, or was he scrapped? I can't remember.
I
I
I'll be
think he
honest,
came back this game, didn't he?
I don't believe he played. I could be
Okay.
mistaken. I remember seeing his name on the screen.
Yeah, and then I mean the shiftments that they've done, that the Texans have done in the line, have I believe held up to, I mean, from what it started, from what the Texans started out, these last few changes. But that's comes with adjustments though. That has come with adjustments. Why do you think it took the Texans so long to actually start making these type of adjustments? It's wild card next game.
I think it's a mixture of things. I think possibly stubbornness of not wanting to, make adjustments. Like, hey, this is our group. We're going to make it work. But it did till it didn't work. But I think with them, they really were focused on getting the running game going. When they had Kenyon Green out there and the other offensive lineup that they had at the beginning of the season, they were a much better run blocking team, as we saw with with Joe Mixon. He was able to run for 150 plus against the Colts.
Mm-hmm.
He did miss some time, but once he came back, he was continued to average over 100 yards a game. But they eventually had to make a change, due to injuries. But they also probably came to a philosophical change as well. You know what? We may have to sacrifice the run game a little bit, not have our best run blockers so we can keep our quarterback upright because he's taking a lot of punishment.
Yeah.
And so you have your best pass blockers out there. And they've done a fairly decent job of, preventing pressures and from Stroud getting hit so often. But it comes at the expense of the running game because most of those guys that are out there they're not, premier run blockers. They're not even above average run blockers. It's not their forte, but at the end of the day, you got to make a decision. Do you want your running game going or do you want to keep your franchise quarterback upright? It's a tough decision to make sometimes, but they made the right one, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right. So during the media release on Monday, D'Amico Ryans was asked, now the Texans face off the Chargers in the wild card game. This is what D'Amico had to say. What he thinks of the Chargers. We're really excited about this. Is quote from D'Amico Ryans. We're really excited about this matchup versus the Chargers. Really well coached football team. You see, Coach Jim Harbaugh's imprint on the football team instantly. Just how sound they are all in all three phases. Very good football team. They're very balanced offensively, run the ball well, and of course, Justin Herbert is one of the better quarterbacks in the league. He's done a really great job of just protecting the football. Doesn't turn the ball over a lot. It's a lot to be said for a quarterback who does that. Really puts his team in really good situations to move down the field. They're really good on third down. Defensively, I think Coach Minter has done a really good job with his team, just eliminating the deep pass. They do a really good job of playing the shell coverages, mixing the coverages up. And this week, we've got to find number 3, Derwin James Jr. He's all over the place. Talk about blitzing safety, nickel, whatever DB position you want to call for it. Derwin is playing lights out. He's an impact player. We have to have awareness for where he is at all times. Their edge rushers are also good players, been doing it for a long time. Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa are really good tandem there on the edge. So we'll have our hands full, as it should be in a playoff matchup. But we're excited to go against a really good football team, end quotes by D'Amico Ryans. From what I gathered there, it seems like they're aware, obviously, of the players, as you should be. Your key players that are going to be difference makers. I get that Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack still playing in the league is actually pretty that's something to be said right there.
I remember the draft class of 2014, the same one that Jadeveon
Clowney. Yeah.
I argue I felt that Khalil Mack should have been the number 1 overall pick. I think he didn't come from the big school, but in my opinion, he was the much more accomplished college player. Yeah. I think with Clowney, a lot of that had to do with that one highlight hit where he knocked the dude's helmet off. I think that's what really elevated him to the number 1 overall pick status. But I've always had a ton of respect for Khalil Mack, and the dude's
Khalil Mack is it's a player that has to be respected up there. But from D'Amico's quote, I gather like they are aware of like the players that are going to be difference makers. Derwin James, Derwin James is a name that the Texans should be familiar with. 20 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 2 pass deflections, 1 interception, and 3 sacks.
Bowler, and with the shell coverages that they run, they definitely got to keep an eye on him because he can line up in the box and he can also line out center field as well.
He's an all-around safety. Like this guy is nothing to be played with. And as D'Amico Ryans said, dude, they take the deep ball away pretty well, and that's something that CJ and Nico Collins it's going to be a good battle seeing CJ and Nico Collins go up against that. I think that's something that to be looked for, a matchup to be looked forward to.
Offense, you should be used to it because I think most defenses have played that shell coverage and taken away that deep pass. They've gotten a few, lucky breaks here and there, but for the most part, that deep pass hasn't been there this season for Stroud like it was a year ago.
Yeah, no, 100%. And then obviously the fact that there's really not much help on the wide receivers now. I mean, um, with unfortunately with Tank Dell going out, that really kind of just I get slowed. I guess made the offense, which was already lackluster to begin with,
Mhm.
it made it even more lackluster than it was. So now you have obviously Nico Collins being your number one target, but after that, you do have Dalton Schultz, but Dalton Schultz isn't the Dalton Schultz that the Texans were used to last season. Also, but that's still an option. I What I would like to see though is a little bit more play action pass from CJ Stroud, something like that, because I think they've gone away from it for a while.
Yeah, it's a little bizarre. I think some of
Yeah.
the announcers for the last few games for the Texans have actually pointed that out as well. Like they would like to see Stroud run a couple more play actions, more
Yeah.
bootlegs. But I mean, that comes down to the play calling, and that's something that we've pointed out, several weeks in a row where the play calling has been very lackluster, very uninspired and unoriginal. When you have defensive coordinators, basically saying that your offense is predictable, I mean, got to change something up. Now, I've seen other shows where people will essentially say, what can the offense do? I think I watched a show with Wade Smith, former guard for the Houston Texans.
Yeah.
He's saying, with the offensive line's inability to block at times, it does kind of limit your playbook. And I can see it from that point of view. And at that point, like, what can you run that's going to be successful? But the play action has worked for 50 plus years. You can definitely pull it off. And I think this offense is capable of running the play action. They just, for some
Yeah.
reason, they shy away from it.
I think so too. They shy away from it, but that goes along with the I think execution is also a big part of it, and you've actually heard the coaches talk about the execution aspect of it. Play action pass. I mean, that's a staple in the Mike Shanahan style offense, right? It's there. It should be. Well, it should be, right?
It should
But
be. We haven't
it
seen it.
has. Yeah, and then I mean, there was a CJ Stroud last year with a play action pass. Like I felt like that was like his bread and butter. He would throw the deep pass pretty well, and then I mean,
You saw it week 18, very first
Mhm.
play of the game against the Indianapolis Colts.
Nico
70
Collins
on the Nico Collins. Like
immediately.
he's
And not
capable.
only that, it was just an immediate response after the Colts had scored. It was an immediate. How do you get back? And that's just the way to gain momentum. You know, and obviously that was helpful. So to me, going in, I mean, the Chargers, I know they're feeling pretty hot. Yes, I think they also had a game against the Raiders. Now, of course, the Raiders are in the same boat as like the Titans. They were just trying to get a better draft spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, but regardless, on that. Justin Herbert, even though it was against the Raiders, he was 28 of 36, 346 passing yards, 43 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, and actually had 125 um, passer rating. He actually surpassed that 100 passer rating, which is kind of, for him, it's a pretty big thing to do.
Yeah,
So
I would say the Chargers have been one of the surprise teams of this season, but we've kind of seen it year after year with Jim Harbaugh. Wherever he goes, the guy builds a winner.
I mean, look what he did with Michigan. What he did with Michigan, he made it
And
a
a lot of it has to do with just basically old school football. Run the
yeah.
football, play hard nosed defense. That's
And
just
then I think didn't we make a prediction at the beginning of the year where we were like, what are some teams that are going to
surprise you.
that you feel like they're gonna pretty much go to the next level? And I think you and I and Poppy mentioned that the Chargers with the addition of Harbaugh coming in was going to elevate the Chargers more than they were last season. Here we are. Fast forward to it, they're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So that's coaching too. It's
Coaching and culture matters. You saw
say it
last season.
again. Yeah.
Coaching and culture matters. You saw
Yeah.
last season when Houston had D'Amico Ryans. They
Mhm.
changed the culture, coaching change, coaching style change, and it affects the entire building, and you can see it. And I remember the last time they played in prime time when they had an interview with the coach and all the players there, and you could just feel the energy and like you could tell those guys play hard for their coach.
Mhm. I wanted to go over Quentin Johnson's 2023 season versus his 2024 season. Let me know what you think. Okay. So in 2023, he had 38 receptions, 431 yards, 2 touchdowns, averaging about 25.4 yards per game. This season, 55 receptions, 711 yards, 8 touchdowns, 47.4 yards per game. Obviously, a much improved from last season. Quinn Johnson, I mean, when in his draft class, he was highly regarded. So, what do you think? Is it the trajectory there is it to a point where like, okay, they're starting to see some it's clearly an improvement from last season,
Yeah.
but do you think it'll stay consistent for next year going off of this point?
I don't. Not sure, to be 100% honest with you. I've seen a couple of the Chargers games, and there was one game where he was, open on every play, and they were getting
Right.
him the ball. And then there was another game where he was out there just essentially doing cardio. He's
Yeah,
very consistent. I think year 3 is going to be really where it's going to be telling what his career trajectory is going to be. If
correct.
he has another season like this season, it's going to be, getting closer and closer to that bust label, because he was a highly regarded first round pick, and hasn't been living up to that status as of late.
Yeah, 100%. So you mentioned that you mentioned to me off air that you had a comparison. You want to talk about the Chargers and the record. Is that correct?
Yeah, so
All right, go
as
for it.
far as their defense goes, so with the
Yeah.
defense for the Chargers of this past season, they were ranked number 11 for the NFL for total defensive yards average. In most categories, they were top 10. For points per game, they were first, actually, with only allowing 17.7 points a game. Total yards per game, they were ranked 11th. Yards against, 7th. The pretty stout secondary. Rushing yards per game, they're middle of the pack, 14th. Sacks, they were 7th. They have a pretty ferocious pass rush. Interceptions, they were 8th. Defensive success rate, 7th. And the EPA drawback percentage was 6th. So you look at the numbers. Oh man, that was an elite defense. But if you dig a little bit deeper into it, you can kind of see why those numbers are what they are. So the Chargers had a 4th place schedule. Like they had one of the 4th easiest schedules of the season. And some of the quarterbacks that they have faced where they put up monster numbers: Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell, Bryce Young. Back in week 2, before he got benched,
off, right?
out.
No.
Fields, Bo Nix twice, Spencer Rattler, Jameis Winston, Will Levis, Kirk Cousins, and Drake May. So when you really look at it, you can look at the box score and all the numbers. They're like, oh, this is a great unit. But then you see who they did it against, and it's like, And their record against teams with winning records, they are 1-5 against teams with winning record this season. They've only been one.
You have the team, the name of the teams?
Let's see. I think I have it right here.
But yeah, I see your point. Like do you believe those numbers are kind of inflated?
Very much so. Not saying they're a bad defense, but those
right. Not taking anything from them.
Yeah, because if you watch the national coverage as far as this matchup, a lot of people are writing off Houston. With that's fair considering how Houston has played as of late. But they are kind of saying the Chargers have it very easy because their defense is so stout. But if you really dig into it, like you can put up great numbers against inferior opponents, but their record against teams with winning records is 1-5.
I think Rex Ryan was one of those guys in the media that mentioned, well, the Chargers have it easy. They have a bye week this weekend or somewhere along the lines. I'm paraphrasing.
Not just them, but the Chargers social media team on Twitter. They, do that emoji where guys laid back and then leaning forward to get serious with the controller. Like when they announced that they were playing to Houston, like, oh, okay. Like they also view it as an easy win. And if I'm a member of that team and I see that, I'm putting that on every single person's locker. Like, hey, they think they got a bye week this week. They're coming into the NRG thinking, oh, this is going to be we're just going to roll over, and it's going to be an easy day at the office for them. And I think this is their chance to send a message like they did last season against Cleveland. Every single analyst wrote them off. Oh, Cleveland has the number 1 defense. The Texans have no chance. The Browns steamrolled them a couple weeks earlier. It's going to be a repeat of the same thing. And it's funny. Last year we had a live reaction to that playoff game against the Browns, and I had said on air I predicted the score to be around 31 to I think single digits, something like that. I said the defense is going to make a play, and it's just going to open the floodgates, and it's exactly what happened.
Yeah. I do want to say this. I don't think going into this game, I don't expect the Chargers to have just a cakewalk victory. I think it's actually going to be relatively close. let's say even if the offense is, still as unproductive as it's been, even let's just say hypothetically, the Texans defense has been elite to me all season long. And in order to really disrupt Justin Herbert, if you start applying pressure to Justin Herbert, he will start making mistakes. And none better than to do that than the Texans defense. You have Danielle Hunter, who's been phenomenal, along with the tandem of Will Anderson Jr. And they're coming off with fresh legs because they basically rested against the Tennessee Titans with their Houston Oilers tribute uniform. Um, we'll talk about that, but I said we don't talk about that, but still. Um, and then you're having not only that, Aziz Al Shire came back, and he's been, Aziz Al Shire, Henry To'o has had a phenomenal season, has stepped up. Um, Henry To'oTo'o, like, yes, I think he leads the league in missed tackles, but when he makes a play, he makes a darn good play. And I think in that aspect, I also think some of those numbers a little bit is skewed just because the dude plays hard, like all the entire every single drive. So I know he's bound to miss a few tackles here and there because he is
It's not so
playing hard.
much the form. I think it's just sometimes he takes bad angles, and we've seen it on film. He
That
takes
too.
a bad angle against the better tight ends, and I mean, what linebacker wouldn't miss a tackle against a
Of
tight end?
course, yeah. I mean, you see Aziz Shire play hardball too, and he also makes misses or whatnot. So I understand it's just measuring the your opponent at that point. And then also like Derek Stingley, basically voted all American and going to the Pro Bowl, like phenomenal corner. And then on the opposite side, Kamari Lassiter, the Rook has been phenomenal as well. Like you got two shutdown corners there, and not only that, I want to talk about safety, Kalen Bullock, because I remember when we did the draft show here, and we were talking about the drafts. We said that Kalen Bullock was going to be a ball hawk. I think all of us unanimously agreed
Yeah.
he was going to be a ball hawk. He's been this season. This season he was targeted 28 times and only allowed 11 receptions. The lowest completion percentage, 39.3 allowed as the nearest the nearest defender this season. Okay. Bullock also made a play on the ball, 5 interceptions, 6 pass deflections on 39.3% of targets, the highest among defenders with at least 25 targets. This is the guy that got from USC, whose defense was atrocious for lack of a better word last season, and I think we also mentioned he was a bright spot at USC, and then look, that has transitioned well over to the Texans. So honestly, great pickup on the round that they got him on. And then even this, the defense is still performing well. The reason why I've been saying the Texans defense is elite, they've been performing well even with Jalen Petrie gone, Jimmy Ward gone, who replaced Petrie. You know what? A lot of people talked about oh gosh, I'm Eric Murray, but honestly, Eric Murray has held his own.
Yeah, I think he has been like one of the defensive backs that a lot of quarterbacks in the past like to pick on. I
Yeah,
think the issue with him is that he was a great special teams player, but they
yeah.
placed him in a starting role, and that's not his strong suit. But if you have him coming off the bench and then playing in spurts, he plays hard, and he's made some plays this
Mhm.
year. He's
Yeah.
definitely improved upon his previous season.
Yeah, no, 100%. So I think the Texans defense will honestly believe this might be a close game. Honestly, I don't think it's going to be a blowout, and if it were, I'd be surprised, and that would just be, I think, offense not being able to produce. Does that make sense?
Yeah, if the offense
But
explodes and it just completely falls apart, then yeah, it's
it's
gonna
a win. I
be
think. I think. I take if the Texans offense can brush off what they've been going through. If the Texans offensive line gives CJ some time in the pocket, but also at the same time CJ's got to look for the open receiver as well. It's just a multitude of different things that really have to align in order for the Texans to come out with the victory. I think you also have to be creative on the play calling as well. Don't get out coached. Don't get out coached, especially against a guy like Jim Harbaugh. Who's had experience, who's had Super Bowl experience, for goodness sake,
right.
who And so I think at this point, you really just if you're the Texans, you can't make those mistakes. You can't turn the ball over. You got to get creative on the play calling, and you got to give CJ some time. And at the same time, CJ has to throw to the open receivers and not do the hero ball thing. You got to do your check downs. You got to give it to your running back here and there. Um, and use your tight end, use Dalton Schultz. He's there. But I think the opportunity for him to do that also has to be there with the play calling. But
I
as far as the defense goes, I think the defense can hold it down.
Yeah, defense should be able to hold its own. I
Mhm.
think the true X factor for this Texans offense is going to be Deontay Johnson. When he
Yeah,
was playing on week 18, like you could tell they made a concerted effort to try to get him the ball, try to get him, going in this offense. And I'm curious to see how they utilize him
yeah,
against the Chargers because there's not a whole lot of tape on him with him, playing against starters in the Houston
yeah,
Texans uniform. So I
yeah,
think he's going to be the real X factor, and if he is able to exploit, because he's going to see a lot of one-on-one matchups. Because if I'm the Chargers, I'm focusing on stopping Nico Collins.
yeah.
If someone's going to beat me, it's not going to be Nico Collins. It's got to be somebody else.
Yeah, somebody else, and that's the thing. Yeah, I agree with you. I think Deontay Johnson, this should be a game to shine for Deontay Johnson. The only thing is, I mean, he hasn't been with the Texans for long.
Yes.
It's been what, 2-3 weeks maybe at the most. And so since the Texans basically played the Chiefs that the week the week after. I mean, you saw a little bit of it with Davis Mills at quarterback. I think you mentioned last time we were on that one of your biggest concerns is just the ability to catch the ball, correct?
Yeah, he has an issue with holding on to the ball. He has a lot of drops. When he
Yeah.
was with the Steelers, he was targeted a lot, so that may have contributed to the higher number of drops. But still, we see multiple guys get targeted hundreds of times in the NFL, and they didn't have as many drops as Deontay Johnson did that one season when
Yeah.
he led the league in drops. So if he can get that cleaned up, and they can incorporate him in creative ways to get him the ball in space. I had mentioned before on the previous shows, like he essentially fills the role that Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell were playing this year.
Mhm.
He can, you can plug and play him in that position. That should open up the playbook tremendously for this Texans offense.
Yeah, 100%. I think that, and then also if you're John Mechie and you're Xavier Hutchinson, man, they also have to step it up also to help out. It's just how it's got to be. But it's like a multitude of things. But again, if I'm to end the show, if I'm willing to make a prediction, I think Chargers take it 20. I say it's because I mean they were coming in hot. I mean they're scoring points that offense, but again, the Texans defense, I think they can hold their own, but I think the Texans lose. I want to say 14-20.
Okay. I'm gonna go the opposite direction. I
Mhm.
think the Texans, they probably have seen all the national media talk and they want to make a statement like they did last season against the Browns. I think they come pumped up in front of the home crowd. I think they kind of lucked out playing the Chargers versus playing a team like the Steelers. We've
Mhm.
seen how the Steelers fans travel, and that they would have came to
Mhm.
Houston. They would have the offense would have to operate on a silent count, which you wouldn't expect at a home playoff game. But those
Right.
Steelers fans, they travel really well. Chargers fans, not so much. So I
No.
think the atmosphere is going to get the players going. And I think they try again, like I predicted last season, they try to make a statement, and I think they run away with it. I think they win this game. I'm gonna go 38-24 Texans.
Still a close game regardless though, right?
Yeah, it's still a two
Yeah.
possession game, but I think they run away with it. And I think the Chargers will put up points to try to make a comeback, but I think it'll be too little too late.
Okay. All right. Well, that's going to be it for us this week. Next time we see you will be after the Chargers Texans games, and that's going to be it for us. It's going to be it for us tonight. Thank you guys for joining us. We appreciate y'all. See y'all next time. Peace.